Hey, experts listeners. I want to key you into something that we do very special here at Ops Experts Club, and that's a masterclass. We have a free masterclass called Foundations That Scale. And the great thing about this masterclass is it's for operation professionals who are growing businesses. One of the most dangerous things you can do as an operator is grow businesses on a foundations that's not stable. So in this particular masterclass, we take apart all of the inside pieces of your team, your tech, and how they're using time, and we make sure that you're building on a foundation that's stable. So if you want to check out a great masterclass completely for free, go to foundationsthatscale.com. We'll see you there.
Welcome to the Ops Experts Club with Aaron, Taryn, and Savannah. This podcast will take you behind the scenes of some of the finer details of multi-million-dollar companies. These ops experts have dealt with operations for scaling companies and well-established businesses with anywhere from small to large teams. If you've ever been deep into the details of a major company, then you know how much it takes, and these conversations are just for you. Welcome to the Ops Experts Club podcast.
Ops Experts Club. Taryn Turner, can I just say this? Lauren is a lucky lady. I don't say that enough, and I just want you to know, man, she gets to wake up to that hair so sweetly combed every single morning.
Nice pile of fluff.
Hey, so tell me, everything's good on the ranch? The Taryn Turner Ranch is going good?
Yeah, we're hitting the rainy season, so just prepping for the rain.
How's Moose doing?
Moose is having a blast. He played with a worm the other day while we were in the garden. So he never thought I'd see an 80-pound dog playing with a 6-inch worm, but
Well, hey, those of you who are nature lovers, we're not here to talk about nature today. We're here to talk about operations. And so if you think about operations, how to make your operations better, you're tuned into the right spot. So especially if you're a new operator, maybe you're running online operations for folks, or if you are running brick and mortar operations, we really try and cover the whole gambit of things here. And Gambit's going to be a great movie if they do make one of those, Taryn, just so you know, I digress. If you're growing as an operator, this is the place to do it. So today we've got somebody pretty exciting to interview on the show, Taryn, a guy that is a good friend of both of ours, a guy that the two of us have got to work together now with a lot of years, have worked with him inside of multiple different clients. So I'm going to bring to the stage Dan Tao, and he is a retention specialist for something pretty special we're going to talk about during our show today. So here he comes. Dan, welcome to the show today, my man.
damn.
Good afternoon, you two. How you doing?
Good. Dan, we've known each other a long time, brother, and I'm just grateful for your friendship. I think the thing I love most about Dan, and anytime I get to introduce Dan to a client, is just how honest you are, how humble you are, how sincere you are in the way that you approach things. And I think that really, really helps doing the kind of work you do with retention. So thank you for being the dude that you are. I really appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Maybe some of you who are listening here, you're like, wait a minute, what are we talking about? Let me make it really clear what we're talking about when we talk about retention specialist. Most people might call it collections. We don't like collections around here. We feel like it's a nasty 4-letter word that spells more than 4 letters, because we feel like collections can come off very harsh, very rude, very rough. All of us have witnessed collection companies, whether we've fallen behind or people just assume we've fallen behind. Maybe we've fallen behind, or maybe we just haven't got that bill in the mail yet. And somebody calls us and they're like, what are you doing behind on your payments? And they just bark at us, and they're aggressive and they're rude and they're mean. And it's like, wow, that was an incredible customer experience, especially if that wasn't even your intention. You didn't even realize you had missed the bill. You weren't even aware that you were delinquent. You had been signed up for something you didn't even realize was a recurring payment, and now it's back at you. And we have collections that are falling on those things. It can be a bad experience. Retention is different in that we're trying to retain the customer for the long term. We realize that this is somebody that's going to go on being valuable to us, and the worst thing we can do is give them a bad experience out of the gate. Tara, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said it right. It's, we end up with people wanting to do so many payment plans. I mean, I get it. You have something awesome you want to sell, and you want to be able to open it up to so many more people that can purchase, and people can afford to pay it all at once. But, unfortunately on the customer's end, they are agreeing to pay in full over time for a product they're going to be sent right away. So yeah, it is something they are obligated to continue making payments on. It's not something you can just stop. It wasn't a subscription. It's not like a monthly community you're working on. And that leads us to needing to offer solutions in that area, because people don't think about that long term. Oh, I'm going to offer a payment plan, but they don't think, well, what's next? You
Right.
know, half of those payments are going to fail on that first try. Doesn't mean you're going to lose all that. You end up recapturing a lot of that, but a good 50% of those, usually end up failing right away for whatever reason.
And a lot of people, visionaries just don't think of what's next, right? Visionaries think of what's now, right? And they get in there and they sell it. I mean, a lot of times they
Mhm.
can even sell it, especially in the online space. They sell the thing even before it's built. It's just an exciting idea. We haven't even built the thing, and as an operations team, we deal with that a lot on our side. But literally the next step is, okay, but what about after payment free when, like you said, 50% drop off happens, when people make the first 3 payments and then they begin to fall off, what happens next? And that's where Dan comes in. I think, Dan, you've got to do retention for some of the biggest names in the business. You've got to do retention for Pedro Adeo, who is somebody that's an active client that you're in the middle of now. I think that you've got to do retention for Pete Vargas, for Pace Morby. We here at the Collab, we've got to do it for Keith Yackey and continue. Jamal Miller, we've got to do it for some really great names out there. And I think, Dan, one of the things that you and I realized as we were doing it within Collab team for clients was we should really make this an offering. We should make this a standalone. And that's what birthed Heart First Retention. The Heart First Sales Retention is something that Dan and I partnered in on. We took all of Dan's years of expertise. Taryn and I have done a lot of retention ourselves too. We systemized it and then said, hey, let's go make this an offering to people. And Dan, the reason why I love partnering with you in this is us realizing that people are the highest value, right? The reason why we called it Heart First is because we believe that you should be going after people and their heart first. Because I think a lot of times it becomes a heart issue and valuing people because people, we believe, have the greatest impact on the world. So Dan, do you want to speak to that a little bit? Maybe just your value of people?
Sure. Want to use an example. This was a couple years ago during COVID, and there was a person that had purchased a $17,000 program, but had fallen behind. Happened to have been a associate pastor at a mega church in the Midwest, and had fallen behind. Well, when people fall behind, they know it. So we come to them, we see how we can help them get across the finish. Well, person dodged me at first, but then I also pastor, so I have a pastor's heart. But I finally got caught up with this person right after Christmas and found out, and I was judgmental at first because as a believer, we let our yes be yes and our no, no. So if we're going to make that commitment, we're going to follow through on that commitment. And then, as Paul Harvey used to say, you hear the rest of the story. And I found out that because of COVID, a lot of their parishioners had left and were tithing. And this person had 3 people under them. They cut those 3 people loose at Thanksgiving and cut this person's salary by 30%. And was a sole breadwinner because her husband ran the homeless shelter in the town that they lived in. Plus they had 3 kids. So there's one, and it's like, oh, I'm so sorry that I prejudged you. And then at Christmas time, things got worse, where the finances were not coming in for that church. They cut her salary another 40%. So in 2 months, they lost 70% of their income. And so I said, do you have something in good faith that you can make some sort of payment on? And she said, yeah. And so she did. And I prayed for her. The next day, somebody came to her and says, the Lord's telling me you need some money. Gave her $2,000 and helped her out of that jam a little bit. But she humbled herself and she went before my line group and called what was going on. Another person says, I want to hire you. Interviewed her, hired her on the spot. Within 1 month, she was paid in full because she was working 40 hours to that new place, happened then on the West Coast, making West Coast wages for Midwest living and working 70 hours a week now, 40 hours for the new company, plus 30 hours for the church, but was paid in full in 1 month. So instead of beating this person over the head that knew that they were behind, how can I help you? And so we helped them along, get across the finish line. And now we have testimonials of people like that, you might have hit hard times. We come alongside them and we find a way to get them across the finish line. They can retain the materials that they purchased and both sides are happy. So we're here to serve people. If you have that servant's heart, you can take and help a lot of people. You'll have a lot happier clientele who will turn around and purchase more products and services later.
I think that's the key, right? I think that you just took them to a place where we recognize their humanity, right? Like let's recognize this is a human. Let's realize we all could be in this position, right? So let's address them as people and realize that we philosophically at Heart First determine that people are the highest value. I mean, like we're going to come and we're going to talk to you like a human. We're going to embrace your humanity. We're going to realize that you've fallen on hard times. And that doesn't mean we're just going to let you off the hook. But when you can start from that place, I think you get to a lot better opportunities. We often say here at Heart First, and you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, that people affect the greatest impact on the world for change, more than a message, more than a product, right? That people and being out there and having influence is going to have the biggest impact. So if you're whatever it is that you're teaching, if you're teaching real estate, if you're teaching marketing, if you're teaching kingdom entrepreneurship like Pedro does, like what's going to get your message furthest is people actually are doing the work that you're teaching them, right? So let's value the person as that greatest impact on the world for change. People are the greatest vehicle for a message, right? With raving fans, evangelists, people out there spreading the word of like good things that they've encountered, right? Whether it's a diet, whether it's like a new restaurant, whatever it is, raving fans is what keeps that flame just fanned and spreading out across the community. Your people have cost you a lot to win, right? Like you paid a ton of money to knock down with ads and create an opt-in list for this person to have ascended within your product journey and given you their yes, and realizing that that person's yes was expensive. Ad spend, developing a strong customer journey, hours of time to convince and nurture that person to say yes. We also realize that yes is fragile. And so, Dan, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit to how fragile sometimes somebody's yes is. They get excited about a product, they get in the middle of it, and then maybe it doesn't work as fast as they had not, or maybe they're not applying themselves enough to what they're learning, and their yes begins to falter. Maybe talk about that for a minute.
Good question there, Aaron. But I take to remind them why they got into the program in the first place, and just encourage them so that if it was fear of missing out, well, you know what? You're not going to miss out. So you might have regrets later, but let's get the all rolling for you again. And just remind them and walk alongside them. And with that encouragement, instead of saying, okay, well, I'm going to get rid of you, they are happy in the end. The companies, whether it's Pedro or whoever it is, they're happy because they've retained their clients.
I love that. And it's great to see. It's all about mindset too. It's reminding them they said yes to this at some point, meaning they had a belief at some point in themselves and their future selves that this product was going to help them achieve. And instead of coming at them with that fear of, okay, now you owe a lot of money and I'm just going to collect, it's trying to get them back with that original mindset of the belief and the power and the opportunity of what they purchased to begin with.
That's the heart of it, right? Like that's getting to the heart of the issue. Is the reason why they've stopped paying is because they've gotten wobbly on their yes, right? They're not sure that this is as equal value of something else that's also presented itself to compete against this. But if you can come back to, and Dan, I think you do this really well. Hey, why did you say yes to this in the first place? And reminding people where they started, I think that really helps folks. And like, okay, so if you stop paying on this, how are you going to address that original problem that you had? Do you have another solution in place? Do you not believe that this message is still the strongest? Do you not believe that this person that you bought this from is still the expert in the area? Do you not believe that you had a weakness in this? How are you going to address that weakness? How are you going to get to there? How, if you lose the accountability of this community, if you use the power of this product, like you're missing out on taking this next step forward and reminding them, rekindling the yes is powerful, the yes is fragile. If you can come to people from that place of Heart First of, considering their value as a human, then considering their yes is powerful, like how can I rekindle that and how can I bring that back online?
And what I do is I remind them they are investing in themselves. That's the best place that you can invest in, is in yourself and your own education. And just so that you can keep expanding year by year, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And just remind them that they are the best asset for themselves and pouring that education into them.
I think that, maybe Dan, you can talk about a situation where I think that Taryn brought up a good point, and that was obviously you have to like remind them. I think obviously they've made a commitment but none of us like the feeling of being threatened, right? When we're threatened by something, it makes us get aggressive back, right? When somebody's being aggressive with me, that means that I feel like I've got to raise my aggression to be able to match their aggression. And then it gets ugly and it gets difficult. Instead of being aggressive, like all you're doing is calling them back, not threatening to cut them off, but yeah, like working with their yes, massaging their yes. I think you gave a good example, Dan, of like, so you're not able to make this payment. What can you do? Can you talk about maybe just an example of a way that you've had to massage somebody's yes back into them saying yes again?
Sure. So I've had several where over the years that they might have missed payment and I reach out to them. One of the things I like to do is face to face, not just an email or a text, but get together on a Zoom call. And all right, so you're running behind. Can we get a partial payment? And just something to show their good faith that they're going to work with me. And there have been times where I've had to limit their access to the program, but as soon as they make even a partial payment, we get that access restored so that they can get that education back in them again. And I do whatever I can when they're sincere and they really want to finish that program. We're there for them. We're into possibility thinking. We're not into, no, it's only this way or the highway.
That's good. We call that concession. So we talk about our 4C proprietary process when it comes to Heart First. And that's the third one in it. It's called concession. Like, what kind of concession can we make? Are we able just to pause them so they don't lose their place? Hey, we'll pause you here. You're not going to lose your place. Obviously, you're going to lose some access, but as soon as we see you starting to make payments toward this, as soon as we get you caught up, then we're going to put you right back there where you're not going to lose your place. But I think usually we'll start with number one, commitment, like reminding them of their commitment. Because I think if you can bring that back in front of people, hey, when you signed up for this, you made a commitment. Do you remember signing that? Do you remember making that commitment? Do you remember when you committed to doing this? Like putting that right back in front of them, because we all need that accountability. And it has to start there, because if you start from some other place and you're not on that similar ground, they're going to keep arguing with you. But hey, do you remember you made this commitment? So number one, commitment. Number two, confirmation. Hey, remember the ROI? You remember when we determined this, how much value was here? That's where we talked about reminding them of their yes. What did you say yes to? Remember your return on your investment. If you just walk away from this now, it's literally like lighting your money on fire and walking away from this $2,000 you've already put towards this $10,000 product. You want to just light that on fire, or don't you want to see a return on what you've already invested? So reminding you of that, confirming it with them. And then it's the concession. Then it's the push and pull, right? Like, how much can you do? Can we just get you moving back the right direction? I'll pause this. You won't lose your traction. We'll concede on that. And then the final thing that we'll always advocate for, the fourth C, and it is catch up. Like give them with a payment and a perk. You know what I mean? Like, could we throw in a free coaching session? Could we give you some opportunity of how we could quickly catch you back up to the momentum lost? And that way we're able to keep in front of them the momentum moving. I think where all of us lose traction, like, let's just make it really practical. For me, let's say I'm on a diet and I cheat one weekend and I just totally destroy my diet, and I watch my calorie count grow and my scale's affected and my measurements are off and I feel terrible about it. What I need is somebody to come alongside of me and say, hey, don't lose heart. Like, get back on track. Like, and this is a quick way we can get you in, like, coach me up a little bit. And then that's just going to get me back on track. So I think it's really important to recognize the humanity, address the heart of the issue, like Tara was talking about, and then take them back to a process where they're underlying their commitment. You've confirmed the value, you make a concession, and then you discuss how can we catch you up by maybe tucking in a perk that's going to put you back on track.
100%. And at the end of the day too, when you're looking at it from the visionary's point of view, would they rather have, $100 or no dollars? Because, offering people some of those options, it's going to get more money than no money.
Super good point. Some money beats no money. John Acuff has a saying, some beats none.
Yes.
And I think that's really the truth. And like, you can complain and cry and talk about how they don't recognize the value and don't they see how much I've given them? And I can't believe they've fallen off. And then you're starting to make the person that's defaulting the enemy, instead of just recognizing, no, they've probably got cold feet. They probably just need somebody to swing in alongside of them, coach them up a little bit, and let's recapture some of your money now with the hope that we can regain most of your money later. And I think, like, to speak to that, Tara, do you want to speak just real quick to maybe visionaries are listening or people listening today and they're like, man, I hate being in this situation. I hate that we're even having to have this conversation, because I think visionaries can get pretty pissed pretty fast on people not paying them for the product that they've put so much energy and time into. what would you recommend to visionaries that are listening when it comes to ideal payment plan scenarios? You know, like you and I talk about this all the time. We visionaries know, like, let's roll out payment plans for 36 months. You know, like, do you know how hard it is to collect 36 months worth of payments? Like, and how much are you giving them by the time that you want to be done with collecting this stuff? You know, so can you talk to like maybe just some historically? I know you're the guy that builds all these sheets. Heart first is great because we can build a dashboard of visibility and how we can check off things and how we know how much we're retaining and gives people a real clear picture on that. But can you talk to just visionaries about how long should they really be offering payment plans? Where do we really start seeing a lot of drop off?
That's awesome. I'm really glad you asked, Aaron, because I go through my whole life hoping somebody asked this because, as you know, I got to work with a client that had some pretty big payment plans 2 years in a row. And so we're talking about 1,000 customers. And so I actually got to deep dive into the data and look at drop off points as well as how much they received on 3 different levels of, the full pay, obviously, but then the 3 pay, a 6 pay, and a 12 pay option. And it was a lower price product, 2K product. So it's not going to be a big high ticket offer. But what you do see though, is obviously the longer it goes out, the more drop off you have. And you're going to see the most drop off after 3 months, which is why 3-month payment plans are the best.
Yeah.
6-month payment plans, they're still good, but you're going to get a lot of drop off still. And what you want to look for too is when you're adding finance fees to your payment plans as well. Because when we did the reporting, although we lost a good 20% of payments because we had finance fee on, we actually made the same amount per customer as the full pay. So that's why that a little extra 15 to 20% that you're charging for them to be on a payment plan is important, because then you're making the same dollar amount per customer. But yeah, if 12 months are very, very difficult to make the numbers work and equal, that you're going to get the same amount per customer as a full pay.
Amen. Hallelujah. But I will say this, like, I think if you can, as a visionary, ask yourself, like, what's the break even? Like, if I were to start losing, like, if you realize you're going to get more yeses if you give people payment plans, right? So where are you going to be satisfied where you're like, hey, if I have to cut them loose and they're not going to finish their payments, I at least am going to be satisfied with X. Awesome. Collect that in the first 3 months. Like, whatever you can do, like, get that in the first 3 months. And then that way, anything after that's just gravy. Like, if you get them to stick around longer than that, awesome. But at least you've collected a minimum viable from anybody that says yes, whether it's a pay and fold or it's a payment plan. I'd say like that 3-month break off is a really good place to do it. And just realizing that you're making Dan's job harder, the more touching points he's got to make with these people. So he gets them, let's say he gets them back on board at month 3. Well, month 6, he's having to reach back out again because now they're off track again. And then at month 9, he's having to reach back out. And every time Dan reaches out, he's going to have a lesser chance of being able to get them back on board because he's having more and more conversations. Dan, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes. You both hit the nail on the head. If we can do a full pay, a 2 or a 3 pay, those historically are the best. Yeah, you might have 15, 20% that's missing on the third payment, but because they're already 2/3 in, they have more of an incentive to finish doing their paying because they have access to the program, generally lifetime access to the curriculum. So there's a higher incentive there. And that's the longer you go, it is tougher to collect.
I'd say too, Dan, wouldn't you say? Because Dan, I know you and I with Heart First, we recently took on a client and we were like, this sounds so exciting. Like the name of the client was so big. And we're like, yes, this is amazing. I can't believe it. And they had like $2 million in retention. Like they had $2 million that they wanted us to chase down. And we're like, oh my gosh, the profitability on this one could be incredible. But they had let their list grow cold. They didn't have somebody that's been following up on it for months and months and months and months. So by the time we start harvesting it, like the ground is freaking rock hard. People don't even remember the minutes they made. They don't even remember what they signed up for because they let too much time lapse. Do you want to talk to that as we're educating visionaries on, be thinking about your price point, be thinking about what minimum viable is, be thinking about your payment plans and how long you reel them out and let them go. But also, oh my gosh, make sure you've got somebody on retention. Will you talk to them about like leads going cold?
Yes. So whatever the system it is that you're using, if they miss a payment, it's gonna probably automatically try and collect again at 1, 2, or 3 days later. Let's say it's 3 days after each one. So you're looking at 9 days if they failed 3 times. You've got to strike while the iron's hot, because and someone like myself or somebody in-house, if you can get them to be reaching out, making a phone call, email, text, Zoom call, whatever it takes to get in front of them as soon as possible, useful, your percentages go up exponentially. Wow. And that's what we want to do, is be able to reach out to them very quickly, not let it go 45 days or 60 days, because by then it's cold.
Yeah. I think too, Dan, will you speak to, as we're getting ready to wind up the show today, the difference between a retention specialist and customer support or customer experience? Because I think those are two very different roles. And a lot of times the visionary is like, just have customer support reach out, just have customer experience get involved. And what would you say is the difference between a retention specialist and somebody that's working customer support?
Yeah. That's why the name of Heart First it's because the person that's doing it has to have a heart for the people, and they've got to put their heart instead of the finances of everything. And honestly, yes, I love doing what I do. And at first I can honestly say I hated what I did until I changed the way I looked at things. And that was putting my heart towards the people and seeing how I've been helping serve them. So that's what they need. And a person that's doing accounts receivable, retention, is somebody that has a heart for the people, because customer service is I'm not taking away from what they do, because we work hand in hand, but it's a matter of empathy, not sympathy, but empathy. And as we reach out to the people and being able to get them back on track. And my heart would be, yes, we're happy to do the collections and retention, if you will. But if you have that special person within the company that has a heart towards your clients, let Heart First train them so that you can do it and use the system that we've used and over the last several years, so that we can help you become more efficient within your own company.
That's good. I think obviously customer support is there to help solve problems, right? But when people become the problem, like, they need somebody they can escalate that to. And it's great to have somebody that just isn't dealing with all the day-to-day problems. They just deal with people who become a problem. And then that, like you said, that can value that person. And so Dan, thank you so much, man. If people want to find you, Dan, want to talk to you, I know they can reach out at heartfirstretention.com. That's someplace where they can track you down. I know too, any of our socials, if you'll just drop retention, if you're on our socials, you can just DM us retention and we'll put you in touch with Dan for Heart First. But he did hit on a good thing there of not only is Heart First willing to do it for you, but also willing to train your people, which is an asset. So we hope this training today, we hope this webinar was a benefit to you. Taryn Turner, always an honor and a privilege to talk to such a great agrarian and operations specialist. Dan, such a privilege to have you on the show today, man. Love working with you. Love all the things you're doing for such great entrepreneurs out there. And for all the listeners, thanks for tuning in today to Ops Experts Club.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ops Experts Club podcast. New episodes available every week on Spotify, iTunes, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. If you're curious about how some of the biggest names in entrepreneurship have scaled their businesses to the next level, check out some of our best content on this topic by going to foundationsthatscale.com. You can find the link in our bio and do your part to improve as an ops expert.